Hey, everybody. So, we're finishing up Beloved this week. So, before you do any of the assignments for this week, make sure you finish reading the novel. And then we have discussion board assignment just on the last section of the book. And then there is the third critical response essay. And so that essay is going to deal with all of Beloved. So, this last part of our reading begins with Paul D on the steps of the church, where he's sleeping for the time being. And he's reflecting on his past and how, this tobacco tin in his chest has been burst wide open. He's remembering all kinds of things from Sweet Home. He remembers planning to run away from Sweet Home, and he remembers the death of Sixo, which is horrific. He and Sixo were caught trying to escape, and Sixo was burned alive. Stampede then speaks with Paul D about Beloved, and Paul D says, and I quote, "She reminds me of something. Something look like I'm supposed to remember." And so again, Beloved for Paul D is linked to memory, right? She causes that tobacco tin to open wide, and now, of course, he's remembering a lot of these painful things. And then part 3 begins. And in the beginning of part 3, it focuses on Denver and how once Setha sees that scar on Beloved's neck, she is convinced that it's her baby girl come back. Remember, Setha cut her baby with a handsaw, and Beloved has a scar across her neck. So these two, Setha and Beloved, become completely absorbed with each other. And so their relationship has definitely changed. And I think for the worse, it's become very dysfunctional. They're kind of angry and arguing with each other. Beloved becomes more and more demanding. And she develops, I hope you notice this, a basket fat stomach. So Beloved is pregnant. And if her belly is basket fat, that means she's, over 6 months along. So think about that. She seduced Paul D while he was with Setha, and now she's pregnant with his child. What a horrible thing to do to someone who's taking care of you. Or is this a part of the revenge effort to get back at Setha for killing her child in the first place? So, I think that's answered a little bit later. Because of the disorder in Setha's home, Denver then goes out and looks for work and asks for help. And she heads to her former teacher's house, Lady Jones. So they're living off of donated food. Lady Jones has the neighborhood leaving them, various gifts of food. Setha and Beloved are, in this different dynamic. And there's a good description of their dysfunctional relationship. And this is on my page 294 to 295. The narrator writes, "The bigger Beloved got, the smaller Setha became. The brighter Beloved's eyes, the more those eyes that never used to look away became slits of sleeplessness. Setha no longer combed her hair or splashed her face with water. She sat in the chair, licking her lips like a chastised child, while Beloved ate up her life, took it, swelled up with it, grew taller on it, and the older woman yielded it up without a murmur." So Beloved is just, she's eating because she's pregnant, and she's just consuming Setha. And Setha is just yielding it up to her. And a bit later, the narrator describes their relationship, and she writes, "Setha was trying to make up for the handsaw. Beloved was making her pay for it." And so, with that going on at home, Denver goes out and looks for work, and she tells Janie about Beloved. Janie works for the Bodwins. And then the rumor mill starts working. Janie goes and tells someone else, who tells someone else. And all the other women in the community are convinced that, and I quote, "Setha's dead daughter had come back to fix her." So apparently the sign that Beloved has no lines on her hands indicates that she is a ghost returned from the dead. And that's how the community sees her, as a, return of the repressed, or a kind of ghost with a revenge to take out on Setha. And so, Janie tells Ella. Ella is the woman who helped Stampede ferry Setha over the Ohio River when she was running north. And so when Ella finds out, she wants to take action. She gathers about 30 women together, and they go to 124 Bluestone Road to pray. To try to, exorcise this ghost, right? To cast this demon out of Setha's house. And this is another instance of that kind of communal healing, like what we see practiced by baby Suggs in the clearing. And here they're coming together to help Setha. This is also another key moment for Setha. The women are together praying in front of the house. When Mr. Bodwin arrives in his coach to pick up Denver for work, Setha sees him and mistakes him for school teacher. Remember, she saw a hat and just flew. She sees Mr. Bodwin's hat and starts to react as if it's school teacher. So, it's a super hot summer day. This is a very climactic, tense moment. It's super hot. Setha and Beloved are chipping off pieces from a lump of ice to cool off. The crowd gathers in front of the house, and they hear them singing. And so Setha comes out of the house with Beloved, and this communal healing to purge this ghost from Setha's house begins this description. And this description starts on page 308. And our narrator says, building voice upon voice until they found it, meaning the group of women singing in front of their house. And when they did, it was a wave of sound wide enough to sound deep water and knock the pods off chestnut trees. It broke over Setha, and she trembled like the baptized in its wash. The singing women recognized Setha at once and surprised themselves by their absence of fear when they saw what stood next to her. The devil child was clever, they thought, and beautiful. It had taken the shape of a pregnant woman, naked and smiling in the heat of the afternoon sun. Thunder black and glistening, she stood on long, straight legs, her belly big and tight. Vines of hair twisted all over her head. Jesus, her smile was dazzling. And so they see Beloved as a kind of demon, and they think that she's in this form of a pregnant woman, for the purposes of getting back at Setha. But she's very beautiful, and I love this description of her. She has this deep, dark complexion. She's completely naked. Her hair is like vines all over her head, and she's just stunning. And so they're surprised that they're not more afraid of her. And so they keep singing. At that same moment, Mr. Bodwin's coming up, turning the bend in the road, in his carriage, and he's heading up to the house to pick up Denver for work. Setha sees him and thinks it's school teacher. And so a little bit later, guiding the mare, slowing down, his black hat wide-brimmed enough to hide his face, but not his purpose. This is from Setha's point of view now. He is coming into her yard, and he is coming for her best thing. She hears wings. Little hummingbirds stick needle beaks right through her headcloth into her hair and beat their wings. And if she thinks anything, it is no. No, no. No, no, no. She flies. The ice pick is not in her hand, it is her hand. So for Setha, this is a return of school teacher. It's as if it's happening again. Just like a flashback. This is triggered by the look of Mr. Bodwin's hat, and her head gets tingly, and she just goes. And so Setha attacks Mr. Bodwin. It's a repetition of school teacher coming that prompted Setha to first kill her baby with that handsaw. Um, but this triggering moment, this repetition of this moment, is different. She switches into fight or flight, and she chooses to fight, and she attacks Mr. Bodwin. So that's an important difference here. Clearly, it's not school teacher. Mr. Bodwin is an abolitionist, even, and he's coming to pick up Denver from work. But Seth is not raising the weapon to her children anymore. She is attacking the white man whom she believes is trying to take her children back to slavery. So she's directing her anger in this instance toward the appropriate person, the person that is really coming to hurt her, and not toward her own children. So in doing this and running after Mr. Bodwin with that ice pick, Setha lets go of Beloved, and she abandons her again to run toward Bodwin. But this crowd of praying women catches her before she can hurt anyone. Ella even, clocks her one and knocks her down, and they get the ice pick out of her hand. And so in the next chapter, we have a scene of Stampede telling Paul Janie's version of events. And Paul D greets Denver on her way to her job, and they talk about Beloved. Denver says she thought she was her sister, quote, at times I think she was more. And that's it. That's all Denver says. Denver doesn't have much to say to Paul D. She's not very happy with him still. And she then says to Paul D., well, you sure knew her well too, didn't you? Implying their relationship. So Beloved is, again, different things to different people, but she's important in that sense to everyone in their own way and their own memory. So all we know is after Setha was disarmed, Beloved was gone. And we have a description, quote, a little boy put it out how he had been looking for bait back of 124 down by the stream and saw, cutting through the woods, a naked woman with fish for hair. This fish for hair is interesting, and I'll get back to that in a minute. Paul D. then goes to visit Setha at 124 Bluestone Road. Denver has said she's not doing well. And we find that Setha has retired to the bed where baby Suggs died. And she's depressed and just resigned to stay in bed. She's sad because Beloved's gone. And Beloved, she says, was her, quote, best thing. Then in this very last chapter, it deals just with Beloved and how she was a different thing for each character and how she was forgotten almost. She seems to have returned to the water. There's all these descriptions relating her to water. She was seen by the stream in the back of 124. She had fish for hair. And then, down by the stream, her footprints appear at times. Down by the stream in back of 124, her footprints come and go, come and go. They are so familiar. Should a child, an adult, place his feet in them, they will fit. Take them out, and they disappear again as though nobody ever walked there. By and by all trace is gone, and what is forgotten is not only the footprints, but the water too, and what is down there. The rest is weather. Not the breath of the disremembered and unaccounted for, but the wind in the eaves, or spring ice thawing too quickly. Just weather. Certainly no clamor for a kiss. Beloved. So, why do you think Beloved returns to the water? Is she going back into the unconscious? I think that's a possibility. She's going back to a place where she will not be completely remembered, as if she exists, really deep back in the character's memory. Remember that strange chapter that begins, I am beloved, she is mine, refers to her as if she's on the middle passage, or that she's associated with, if she's associated with water, maybe she's referring to the people who were thrown overboard from the middle passage, because sometimes if the ship was not moving fast enough, they would get rid of their, cargo, and many people were drowned at sea. if beloved is the, the forgotten ones, maybe that refers to them too. But I'm interested to see what you think. So with this week, finish the reading for Beloved, complete the discussion board about the last section of the novel, and then when we complete our third critical response paper. So for the discussion board, you're focusing on just this last section of the novel. Questions are focused on just on that section. So at the end of part 2, Stamp Paid and Paul D discuss the appearance of Beloved. Where does Stamp Paid think she's from? And do you believe it? Look at what he thinks about her. Then in part 3, we see this, dysfunctional relationship between Setha and Beloved. So tell me in your own words, how do you think their relationship changed? How has Beloved changed? I'll give you a hint. She's pregnant. Why does Denver muster up the courage to finally go out and ask for help? That's an important moment in Denver's development, too. And then the women in town hear the appearance of Beloved at 124 Bluestone Road, and they decide to take action. What do they do? How would you describe what they plan to do? And then the moment Mr. Bodwin arrives to pick up Denver for work is a repetition of that traumatic moment for Setha. Look at what Setha does and how it's different from what she did when schoolteacher arrived. Then what eventually happens to Beloved? And how is Setha doing after Beloved leaves? When Paul D visits her, she's not in good shape. And then tell me what you think the narrator might mean by saying this is not a story to pass on. Is that because this is a painful, traumatic memory that no one wants to remember? Or is it just not important? Should it be something that's forgotten? I don't know. And then in the critical response assignment, where I expect you to address the whole novel, I focus several questions just on Beloved. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in this figure of Beloved. It's the title of the book. So I asked several questions, and they're all meant to enrich your answer. I don't expect you to answer, one after the other. So in short, your essay should explore who or what Beloved is and what she represents. And so your answer should address these questions at some point. Who is Beloved? Or what is Beloved? Is she a figment of Setha's imagination, a ghost, a real person? What is her attachment to Setha and Denver? How do their relationships grow and change through the course of the novel? They definitely change. And then how do Denver and Setha feel toward Beloved at first, and then how are their relationships different at the end of the novel? Lastly, what does the figure of Beloved represent in the novel as a whole? Is she the return of the repressed memories, right? Like those flashbacks that come back unexpectedly? Is she a projection of Setha's imagination? Can we look at Setha's experience as representative of the African American experience as a whole? You have to look at the fact that this is a novel from the 1980s written about something that happened in 1874. So if we're dealing with people escaping slavery, we're definitely addressing the African American experience here. And so can we see Setha's experience as representative of something that the whole African American community faces? Look at what happens to Setha because of Beloved. That should also help inform our analysis of what Beloved really is. And also, for the critical response paper, I want you to address the epigraph. So now that we're done reading the novel, think about this epigraph. In the very beginning of our book, in my version, we have this epigraph. I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. And that's a quote from the Bible. It's from the book of Romans. And the book of Romans is from the New Testament in the Bible, and it consists of the Apostle Paul's letter to the Roman leaders about Christianity. These are his letters where he, spreads the word of Christianity. And in this section, and I found my Bible, and I opened up my Bible to Romans book 9, verse 25, and I'm going to read a little bit more than just this verse so we can get an idea of what it's about. He's talking about God's wrath and mercy and what defines God's community or God's people. And he says, including us whom he has called, not from the Jews only, but also from the Gentiles. Gentiles are non-Jewish people. As indeed he says in Hosea, those who are not my people I will call my people, and her who is not beloved I will call beloved. And in every place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there they shall be called the children of the living God. So this is a Bible verse about inclusion, about people who may not be first considered my people, now being welcomed into a community. And so that is beloved. Her who is not beloved, I will call beloved. And so this is a Bible verse about welcoming people into a community. How do you think that relates to this story and to the figure of beloved? So, remember, Setha's baby never had a name when she killed her. After she killed her, she became known as beloved. She was referred to as beloved because that is all Setha could afford to put on the headstone. And because that is all she heard from the funeral, the beginning of the prayer, dearly beloved. So how do you think this character relates to the Bible verse? So, remember, we have plenty to do this week. The discussion board is first. So read the whole novel, finish reading the novel, then address the discussion board, and then move on to the critical response essay. So the original post for the discussion board is due by the end of the day, Thursday, and then the response is due by 5 p.m. on Friday. Let's make the critical response essay due by the end of the day, Saturday. So you'll have an extra day to work on that because I'm not going to get to grading them until Sunday anyway. So, again, remember, I am here for any questions. Please contact me. I would be so happy to hear from you. And please don't hesitate to reach out via email. I can very easily have a Zoom meeting with you if there's anything you want to talk about. So, I hope to hear from you.